Hello, and welcome to another video in the design process series. Today we're going to talk about refining your design. Now, this is something that happens throughout the design process, but specifically we're going to talk about the stage after you've initially pitched your ideas. If you haven't watched my other videos on design process, things like unpacking the brief, the importance of a brief, criteria for success, those kinds of things, please watch those first, as they'll give you a clearer idea. So what is design refinement? That's a very interesting question and a very reasonable one to ask. Design refinement is what you do after you have your initial ideas. It's about utilizing feedback to better meet the needs of the brief. It's an important part of the design process because it helps us align our ideas with the requirements of the brief, and it helps us understand the needs of our user and the client more and more. It's a reflective process, so it allows us to think about the way that we design and reflect on how we could improve the outcomes and our process. It helps us to improve our outcomes, and by improve I mean lots of different things, not just improve as in meet the brief, although that's very, very important, it's the minimum we can ask for, but improve in terms of things like efficiency, in terms of cost effectiveness, consumer uptake, things like that. Helps us better understand our audience. Now, remember, when we talk about audience, we don't just necessarily refer to the people wearing the clothes. Now, they're a user, but when we talk about audience, we also, potentially mean the people who are looking at the people wearing those clothes. They're our viewer. It helps us get in depth with our learning and really understand design process. And it helps us broaden our learning by extending our thoughts processes beyond our initial ideas. So, how do I refine my design? Let's jump into it. First thing to do is to seek feedback. Now, it's not enough just to ask a few friends, but participating in the feedback process will really give you a clear understanding of the viewpoint of your client and your user, and potentially your viewer. Now, feedback is important. Giving and receiving feedback are integral to the design process. It's really important to participate and engage in those feedback sessions. Once we've sought our feedback and we have gotten some really valuable feedback on our design or our ideas or our initial concepts, what do? Well, we take those ideas and we map them back against the brief. We use the feedback as a tool to see where our work connects or doesn't connect with the brief. So mapping our design outcome or our initial ideas back with the brief. Then what do? Well, using all of that information that we found, we define the gaps. So we define the gaps between the work that we've produced and what the brief is asking for. Now, there will definitely be gaps. No design outcome is perfect first go around. Design is a process. It's called an iterative process, and iterative means that it cycles through. So it goes around and around and around and around. Once we've defined the gaps and we can identify what they are, and we see the differences between what we've produced and what the brief is asking for, what do? Well, we fill in those gaps. So we engage in design methods and design processes to help fill those gaps in. Now, these gaps are going to be the one that really trip you up. Now, a quick example of that might be designing a garment that the consumer loves, that is out of really appropriate fabric, that meets the needs of the target market in the sense that it's cheap enough for them to buy, it lasts as long as they want, but a very simple gap might be it doesn't fit. Now, you can design the best outfit in the world, but if it doesn't fit the person it's designed for, it's absolutely pointless. So while something really small like fit might be what we kind of consider a gap, it actually has a really big impact on our user. So once we fill the gaps in, what do? Exactly that. We take it and we test it back against the brief. We make sure that our new version meets the needs of the brief. We're done, right? That's all we have to do? I'm afraid not. Then we start the process over again. And this process of continual refinement, these cycles of continual refinement, will make us a better, stronger, and more able designer, and will enable your work to meet the needs of the brief very easily. So what techniques could you use to help refine your design? Well, there are lots and lots and lots of techniques out there, lots of design methods, but some really simple ones I'll go through right now. You could sample. So you could make a sample version of your design outcome and test it. Try it out. Test it in the field by taking it outside or getting some people to try it and asking their opinions, or to test it against the needs of your brief. So for example, if your brief asks for a waterproof t-shirt, you could sample one up and test it by putting it under a shower. Well, if it's waterproof, you'll know, and if it's not, you'll definitely know. You can engage in some creative play. Now, this might be something as broad as playing a game of what if? What if this happens? What if the user does this? What if the consumer does this? What if, what if, what if? And they are kind of thought processes to help you really think about the lifestyle of the person you're working with. Or it could be broad as flipping ideas around. So if you've used a very soft fabric, maybe you'll try a very stiff fabric. Or if you've predominantly designed in 3D, maybe you'll explore 2D design. Playing with your mind and kind of exercising your mind will put you in a position where actually your mind is free to think of other things. Have you ever had a really good idea when you're in the shower? This is that type of thing. Giving your mind some freedom to kind of wander and to think and to kind of be mindful of where you are and engage in what's happening allows you to think of new ideas. You could try some draping. It's a very underrated design process. Design through making is really, really integral. Draping onto a stand will give you some really quick results. You could try painting. Now, this isn't necessarily kind of intuitive to most fashion designers, but the act of creating through paint is a very different technique than what we might be used to. And again, that tricking our mind and allowing our mind to be free will give us some ideas. And exploring different media, in this case wet media, will give you some ways to change the way you think or to render things in a different way. Now, the opposite of that maybe we go into some digital manipulation. So maybe taking photographs and scanning them in and playing them around on, image manipulation tools, or drawing digitally, or creating some kind of moving image and placing it online, or posting stuff to social media even, will allow us to kind of help build our ideas and help to kind of refine them a bit further. Sketching. This is the simplest and easiest one, and something that I'd expect every designer to want to engage in almost all the time. Sketching is a really integral part of what we do as designers. Now, the process of this might be sketching a different way, using a different media. So if you always use pencil, using pen. If you always use pen, use pencil. Create something that might be different to what you've done before. Try a stick with ink. Try drawing from a distance. Try using a different part of your body. Often when we sketch primarily with our wrist. Maybe drawing with your elbow or drawing with your shoulder, as will make your movements different. A really important one, seeking more feedback, talking to people about the work that you do, asking them questions, asking about their lifestyle, talking to your users. What kind of thing do they do? Don't just assume everything. Often we fill our minds with all these kind of stereotypes about what we think people might be doing. But a really important thing to help break down those stereotypes is to actually ask people. And last but most importantly is to test. Test all of these ideas out. Test them both in a physical sense, but also in a conceptual sense. Do they work against the brief to meet the needs of your consumer? Are they pushing the limits of your innovation? Here are some tips for success in refining your design. Okay, this first one's a bit of a cheat, but you have to have lots of initial ideas. You have to have lots and lots and lots of ideas so you have a good resource to choose from. If you only have a few ideas, then you're very limited in how you can refine. It means that you're starting in a position of weakness. So it's really important at the beginning of a design process to really, really invest time and effort in developing those ideas. It is not enough just to have a few ideas. Seeking feedback frequently really helps you understand the process. Now, I would suggest you seek feedback from your tutors and from peers, but also other people in the community who are not connected to the course. Mapping against the brief is always key. So learning how that process might work, you could use a criteria for success. And I speak about that in one of my other videos to show you how to create one. Repeating the process will make a big difference. Often there's a lot of fear about getting feedback. People fear that feedback is about judging them. It is not about that at all. Feedback is about enabling you or helping to signpost you in the direction of success. It's really about helping you. It is the exact opposite of what you think it is. The more feedback you can get, the more often you repeat this refinement process, the more successful your design can be. And potentially, the higher your marks will be. Test lots of ideas and processes. This is what you really want. So if we think when your work is being assessed and the assessor says, well, did you try X, Y, Z? Did you try this idea? Did you try this idea? What you want is to be able to say, yes, I tried this idea and I chose not to do it, or I chose to do it for these reasons, and to have evidence to support that. This really demonstrates a really strong understanding of the designer, but also a lot of the things that you'll end up doing will come out of left field. They'll come out of happy accidents. And the only way to create those happy accidents is to take some risks. Take a bunch of risks and to test a lot of ideas. Trying new things is absolutely key. It might make you feel a bit uncomfortable. Trying new things makes us feel potentially a little bit of discomfort. But it's really important for us to try some new things, because that's how we evolve. That's how we grow as a person. That feeling of discomfort is really you learning new things. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. That's what the cool kids say. Follow us on Instagram and have a great time.